Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by.
The Burgermeister of the Mugglefucker Village. Oops. The Burgermeister of Mugglefugger Village. That is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yeah, I think you nailed what they were trying to do there with that, which.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah, yeah. So we are here with Frankenstein's great aunt Tilly.
Right, but
Um,
also we got our faces up here. What's up with that?
yeah, look at us here.
Yeah.
So if you're joining us on YouTube, we're gonna try this. We're gonna do actual video there.
Yeah, tell us if our faces are too ugly and you don't want to see any more of us. That'll be great. It won't hurt my feelings at all.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, Frankenstein. Like, I hadn't seen this before now, and like, I feel like this is a kind of comedy that only existed for like a short window of time. You don't really see this anymore,
Mm-hmm.
where it's really just like it's like gag a minute. There's not really much of a plot, um, and like this is British, of course, but like it feels like it's kind of in the vein of like the airplane movies or like Naked Gun or something like that in America.
Well, it's
Like,
British Canadian because it was released in Canada
okay.
primarily.
Um, but yeah, it's just like the plot is incredibly loose, and
Yeah.
sometimes like you just completely lose the thread for a little bit, and then, but it's just for the gags
Mm-hmm.
basically. And it's really, I think we mentioned last week that we got Donald Pleasance in here, which is he's usually, known for being very serious in things.
Right.
Um, so it's interesting having him kind of like anchor this movie, and he's not like the straight man. Like
Quite the opposite.
he's kind of a lech. He's kind of wacky.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Twice
yeah,
over, he's a lech. Because it's
yep,
both
yeah,
old Victor and new Victor.
yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. Like, I guess we should just get into it. We can get into like our feelings about it later. But
Well, yeah, but
um,
what you were kind of commenting on earlier, this is non sequitur comedy, right? Like
mhm.
we kind of the jokes are ongoing, but they kind of like exist, stop, they come back, and then the punchline's revealed, and then that's about it. But yeah, you want to get
Yeah.
into it? Let's do it.
Yeah, so right away we get like a title screen that this is taking place in Ermintrude Square in the Mucklefugger village of
Right.
Transylvania.
Gotta say that slow so you don't make the mistake I did. But
And
it's
this
100
is
years later. Like
yeah,
I
it
guess
doesn't
from
say. Yeah, we didn't like it. This is the first thing we see. So 100 years later from what? But basically from like the original Frankenstein type story.
right.
So we get like a group of like stuffy village leaders, like a town council or something,
Mm-hmm.
and they're discussing that they want to turn the old castle Frankenstein into a factory, where they can make buggy whips using child labor.
Yeah, that's fun, right? As one old creepy dude is molesting his secretary
Yeah, and
constantly.
and the child labor. This is going to be an opportunity for them to get rid of the town's bad name because of the stigma of the Frankenstein story.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
They can also use the wayward women that they have a surplus of as well in this scheme of
mhm.
theirs.
Yeah. At a certain point, they end up sending that secretary out. I think the guy like this is the burgomaster is the one groping the secretary.
Well, I think it's actually
Um,
the banker, the guy
okay,
who's in charge of the bank is the one groping her. I think his
gotcha.
name
Okay,
is
yeah.
Shotmarker. Like none of their names matter,
hmm
only the titles.
Yeah, and like they're so interchangeable, and it's all so quick that like
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know that I caught a lot of their
Yeah.
names or what they were up, but like they're just like a conglomerate of evil politician type
Right.
guys.
Stuffy old shirts
Um,
and all that.
yeah. So they're like, the only thing is we got to make sure that a Frankenstein heir doesn't show up to pay the back taxes on the castle
Within the
within the
next 6
next.
days.
Yeah. So now we've got stakes.
Right.
And we cut immediately from that to a car containing the surviving Frankenstein family members,
Matilda
on their
Frankenstein.
way to Yeah, we got Matilda, Victor, and
Who's the grandson?
Victor's yes, and Victor's like girlfriend,
Right,
wife, Randy.
Randy.
Um, but it's confusing because Randy calls Matilda Aunt Matilda,
Tilda.
and so I thought that she was like their niece. But then as it went, I was like, okay, okay, she's not a niece because Victor is like all up
Yeah.
on her a lot.
Yes.
Um,
That would be uncomfortable, right?
yeah.
But we also
But yeah, I
get
think
that Muggle Thugger is the seltzer capital of the world, seltzer water
hmm
capital, which
yes,
that's gonna be referenced so much later.
yes. So the idea here is Victor thinks that there is a secret treasure hidden somewhere in the castle, and he
Hmm.
wants to find it. Um, Matilda doesn't really believe that, but she wants to enter a race. These are
Right,
like Model T type, like buggy type cars.
right.
Um,
To,
and
for
she
her
has
suffragette
one that
cause.
yes, and she specifically has a steam powered one, which is like a new and controversial technology. It's crazy to think that that was a thing for a second. There were steam powered cars,
Yeah.
and instead we went the route of fossil fuels that have
Ah,
ruined the air. Yeah.
yeah. We chose the
Um,
right one, right? Exactly.
all
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
But apparently, also, this Victor has squandered his inheritance on food and gambling. We know that because in the beginning of this movie, we're going to see a lot of food all over his face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. He's very like hedonistic. He just lives
Mm.
life to the fullest. They were a wealthy family, but now they're kind of in dire straits, and that's why the hope is that this castle, going to the castle, this might save everything for them.
Right. And then going back to Aunt Tilly, like she wants to win this race to prove that emancipated women are, either equally or more valuable than men. And she has
Hmm
her emancipated bloomers that she wants to shit around town.
Yeah. And she also kind of gives Randy a lecture on this sort of folk hero from Mucklethugger
Yeah,
named
Vermintrude.
Ermintrude. This is Ermintrude Square they mentioned at the beginning, but she was like a goat herder woman who saved the village through the power of
Yodeling?
yodeling.
What?
Um,
Apparently, it
and
called down or avoided a avalanche.
yeah, somehow, and Victor makes a joke about that she must have been gifted with a really great set of
Lungs,
lungs,
yeah.
which is kind of an ongoing gag because Randy is certainly gifted with a great set of lungs.
I'm telling you,
Uh, um,
massive tracts of land, right? As the Monty
yes,
Pythons would say.
yes. And apparently this actress that was like her whole thing. She was like one of the earliest pinup girls. She was like a Playboy bunny for a long time, and I saw something that like at one time she held like a record that she was the person that was believed to have been photographed the
The
most
most.
times while naked.
That's interesting,
So
actually.
good for her, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
got to make your name
um,
somehow, right?
yeah. Uh, so eventually they end up they get to the castle and
We get a bunch of
we
good
have a
gags here.
yeah, we've got a sign on the gate that says "Caution, low
Low flying
flying
bats.
bats." And then the gate actually just falls over.
Well,
Uh,
this happens as Victor is saying, "Wow, this gate is as impenetrable as Windsor Castle," and then immediately falls down. So
yeah,
is that a comment on the British monarchy in the 80s?
yeah, could be.
Yeah, might as well be, right? We'll say it is.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So
Matilda
then,
loves it because she states this old place never loses its charm. So she's been here before.
yeah, yeah. And she seems kind of thrilled, and I think, uh, they arrive kind of at nighttime,
Yeah.
um, and then like I think the next thing we see is just it's like daytime. We see some town officials spying on them from a distance as they're kind of like eating a picnic outside.
Yeah, one guy
Um,
is like the sheriff slash head security guy of the town.
mm-hmm.
The other guy is his number one lieutenant, who his only thing is making a funny voice. That's it. That's the
Yeah.
only thing he contributes.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, this is what kind of movie this is. Like, it could just be like, what about a guy with a funny voice? That'll be a great addition to the
All right.
plot of this movie. Um, And at some point, as they're eating, there's like a statue that falls and almost crushes Victor, and I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if this is
So
additionally like
it was
with
swaying
the
in the
house.
background the whole time, and I'm like, this
Okay.
is bothering me so bad. When's it gonna fall? And then, yeah, there was payoff.
Yeah, like it took me. I was like, is this just saying the castle's run down, or is like somebody trying to kill them? But I think it's just the castle run
Castle, yeah.
down. We don't have like an ongoing thing of people trying to kill them or anything.
Right. Well,
Um,
not Victor, but they definitely do try to kill Tilly later on.
yeah, that's true.
But it turns out
Um,
that it's revealed that Victor's inheritance effectively is just information about the monster and possible treasure.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and supposedly, if they can figure out where the monster is and get him going again, he might know some stuff about where the treasure is.
Right. And this is when
Um,
we get cut to the villagers, who's like, "Hey, the Frankensteins are back," and he's
mhm.
talking to an old lady who's hanging up a string of lizards, and he calls her an impious antediluvian old. Is it puptrode?
Yeah, I think that's what, I don't know this term, but
Right.
uh,
Like I know impious and antediluvian and old, of course, but puptrode? What is
yeah,
that?
yeah,
I don't know. We'll find
yeah.
out
I
later.
mean, it sounds like an insult. I mean, it almost certainly is, but
Yeah.
um, so yeah, but obviously the villagers are worried about the Frankenstein family being back. It's never a good thing for
No.
this village.
Anytime there's a
Um,
Frankenstein, there's going to be a Frankenstein's monster, right?
hmm Yeah. So meanwhile, back at the castle, Victor like explores like deep in the depths of the castle and ends up like falling into a pit. And there's the Frankenstein monster, just
Well,
like
he
unconscious at the
falls into
bottom.
a pit. Let's not overlook the importance of the jelly babies in this. Because apparently that was a snack, and he was like, "Oh, these are jelly babies. I love them. They're my favorite thing, other than I guess Turkish delight." He'll say later. I don't know,
Mm.
but yeah, as he's getting the jar of jelly babies, he basically falls onto a chain and then falls into the pit.
Have you ever had jelly babies?
Yes, they're okay. They're not.
Yeah, I think they're like British. Their answer to gummy bears, but
Yeah,
the texture is way weirder.
it's far
Um,
more gummy than bear, of course. Yeah.
yes, yeah, they're almost like dots,
Hmm.
those like
Yeah.
but they when I went to
Get stuck in
England
your
years
teeth.
ago, yes, yeah, they were because the fourth Doctor Who is
Hmm.
obsessed with jelly babies. So when I went to England, I saw them and I was like, I gotta try
Try
these.
these.
Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, they're not great. But I guess they're people in England seem to love them. I guess.
At least at that time. That's like late 70s or early 80s, so times
Yeah,
change. Like I
yeah,
remember another thing that's going to come is Turkish delight, and I was like, I used to read Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, and
yes,
I was like, oh man, that sounds awesome. And I had some, and I was like, this is bland. This is just sugar, jellied
yeah.
sugar with rose like flavoring or something like that.
Yeah, the first time I had that, I was like, "This is the thing that caused that kid to like just basically betray his entire
That
family."
is a
Like, what the
shitty
hell?
brother.
Yeah, this awful candy. But
Right.
yeah, like, times have changed, as you said.
Yeah.
We have better candy now.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, then we go from him finding the monster to like, we had the two villagers talking. Now we have like more villagers kind of coming together. Like everybody's like, "What are we gonna do? The Frankensteins are back."
Hmm.
Um, and then back at the castle, we have
Victor
the
is
family.
giving Brandy a bath. Like he is
Yes.
scrubbing her real hard.
Yeah, she's like covered with bubbles, so like it's not
Yeah.
it's titillating, but like there's no nudity here. But he's got his hands down in the bubbles, and Donald Pleasance looks like he's having a good time.
Yeah.
Um,
He's not regretting a
uh,
single moment.
yeah. And but Tilly is like in the next room, and they're all kind of talking through the bathroom door, I guess.
Hmm.
And we find out that uh, Tilly worked for Victor's father and
Grandfather.
grandfather. And Randy's like, that makes no sense. You'd be like over 100 years old. And she's like,
Excuse me,
109.
109.
Yeah.
How
Never.
do you live that long? Like how is that possible and still look that young?
Yeah, she says never underestimate the rejuvenating powers of
Royal
royal
jelly.
jelly. And
Okay.
Randy's like, "You mean like the stuff from bees?" And she's like, "Yep, bees and sons of bees." Um,
Right.
so I'm not sure if she is in some way a Frankenstein creation or just an old lady who is using great beauty products. I don't know.
That's a hell of a beauty
'Cause-
product for just royal jelly.
yeah, yeah. Um, and yeah, for this sort of section, it's I think we get more villagers, and then we have
Yeah, they're talking about how
um,
the Frankensteins could be ghosts.
yeah, and then we have Victor being like, "I didn't realize you were here back in the day, Tilly. Like, now you can help us find the treasure. Surely you know where the treasure is."
Right. There's
And
no
she's like,
treasure.
"Yeah, there's not a treasure, and the monster that you think's that's gonna help you, he's dead. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing." And he's like, "Yeah, but you helped revive it originally. Can't you help us do that again?"
You took dictation,
Um,
right, from
yeah,
Grandpa.
yeah. And she's like, "I don't know. It's not where's our trouble. Like he was, he caused a bunch of problems. He got killed, and there's no money. Like, why are we gonna bring trouble back on our house?"
Hmm.
Um, and I think then the next thing we see is just her going to like this sort of town clerk office
She's
to,
registering for the
uh,
road race.
yeah. Um, and at first they're like, "A woman in a race? This can't be."
Right.
And she's like, "The rules just say you got to submit your entry fee. I got the entry fee right here, so um, that's all that seems to matter as far as
Right.
I can tell." And they're like, "Yeah, I guess so."
But you got to go over there to register because apparently they're super sexist and won't register a woman in that
Mhm.
particular booth.
Yeah. So she steps over, and there's a bunch of women at this other window already.
Yes, they're
Um,
from the Cradle of Compassion, Home for Wayward Women.
hmm So it's like a bunch of like teen moms, and just,
Yeah, with
but
the pregnancy bellies. Yeah.
hmm but they are about to be evicted from their home for wayward women,
But
and
why,
because the
Anthony?
village
Why are they being evicted?
the village wants to repurpose their home for a buggy wash.
Right.
So this town is just really dedicated to buggies. That's like their whole solution
I
for
love that
everything.
the lady who's in charge of these other ladies is like, yeah, that's a progressive idea from New York City. What did they have a lot of car washes in New York in the 80s? Like, was that a
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, I'm not sure, and it goes on for a really like it's way later in the movie that somebody finally is like, buggies don't need whips. They don't have
Right.
horses. They're like, what
Yeah.
are buggy whips for?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it turns out they basically need the exact same amount of money that Tilly was going to pay for the race,
Plus
plus,
seven pennies, basically. Pfennigs is what they call them.
yeah. So she's like, well, does anybody else have 7 Phoenix? And like, of course, all these wayward women, they don't have anything.
Yeah.
Um, but then the secretary
Secretary.
from earlier in the movie, she has them, so she gives them the 7 Phoenix, and so they're able to pay off the home, um, and then like because they've teamed up now, Tilly and the secretary like they sit down to talk.
Yeah,
And
she offers her tuna sandwich and introduces herself as Gudrun Gelstegig.
yes,
What a
and
name.
she is nice enough to warn Tilly that like the town's like elders have it out for the Frankenstein family, and that there is the matter of back taxes that need to be dealt with within the next 6 days.
Right, because
So
apparently, if you haven't paid your taxes as a noble in this village, after 601 years, they repossess your home. 601 years? That means even Baron Frankenstein wasn't paying anything.
yeah, that's
That's pretty
way
far.
more than two
Yeah.
generations.
It's at
Um,
least three.
yeah, and so Tilly's like, "Thanks for the warning. We'll do something about that. We'll get it taken care of before the due date."
Yeah.
Um,
But it has to
and
happen
then
by what, tomorrow night at midnight?
yeah, so it's like it's getting close. And we go back to the castle where Victor and Randy are flipping through. They're in the library looking through all the books, trying
Mhm.
to find clues. And Victor ends up finding a book of erotica and getting distracted
Yes.
because he's just
G-
a perv.
Yeah. This is the horniest you've ever seen Donald Pleasance. I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely, yeah,
I really can't think of anything where he's been hornier.
yeah.
I don't want to either. Anyway, But yes, after that, he's walking through. Basically, this whole whole thing is sex because he even gropes the breasts of a statue.
Yes. Yeah,
And
they do that. Like it's like a, it's not, it's like almost nude, but it's got like a
cover.
thin,
Yeah.
yeah, a thin covering, but like I mean, it's still like, it's marble, but like the shape is all there,
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, but while he's doing that, Randy actually does find the book they're looking for, the Baron's original notes as dictated by Aunt Tilly.
Dun, dun,
Um,
dun. The
but
student of
Victor's
natural philosophy, which is just biology.
Yeah. Victor gets so riled up about this that he starts making out with Randy, and somehow that causes the book to catch on fire.
Right, as they talk about ropes and woven baskets and, other BDSM related stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
but the notes just burst into flames. What the heck's up with that?
Yeah, and then Tilly comes in and sees it and is like, "Oh, the book must have overheated in the presence of your lust or something."
Right.
And it's like,
Because they were chemically cooled and, yeah, basically your horniness set them on fire.
yeah. Well, and Victor's like, "Well, don't you remember what you wrote down? You can still help us. We can solve this.
Right, we just need a little
Just
money.
yeah, at least until you have to run the race. Like, just give us a couple days where you help us."
Well, there's
And
a problem
uh,
with that.
yeah, I didn't. I'm not racing. I ended up paying the bill for these wayward girls instead.
Well, she said, yeah, she
Um,
says she paid the bills, and then Victor's like, widows and orphans, right? And she's like, and wayward girls. He gets a little excited at the wayward girls part,
yeah,
more than he should.
yeah. There's a couple gags about that are really on the line, but I mean, with the way that this movie is, like it fits the vibe. Like
Yeah, it's kind of a raunchy 80s comedy, right?
yeah. Um, so then we see later in town, a bunch of women are staging a protest, and they're suffragettes. So like women in this town do not have the right to vote, and
Yeah.
they want it.
Right. They
And
they form a group called ERA, ERA.
hmm Ermintrude's rights again, because like apparently the lore of the town is that Ermintrude got women the right to vote,
Yeah,
and
for
they
saving
had
it.
it for a while, and then at some point it was taken away again, and it's kind of unclear how exactly that happened. But
Right. The
um,
Burgermeister doesn't approve of the guy who gave them the rights, King Edsel, which is that a joke about the car?
yeah, I mean that's the only Edsel thing I know of.
Right. But
Um,
apparently the guy ate 9 servings of spotted dog. And that's what killed him, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, the Burgermaster, he just doesn't want to give women rights,
mhm.
Gee, that's very 80s. Not modern at all.
Yeah, and he's talking about the they we need to find a way to convince them to stop. Like we need to maybe we can come up with our own slogan to distract them from this, get them interested in something. I mean, these are our wives and our mistresses. Like we should be able to control them better than this.
Right. How about
Um,
what is it? Trousers down, skirts up.
yeah, down with trousers, up with skirts.
And the other
Because
guy's like that's gonna send the wrong message.
yeah. Yeah, this is because, Tilly has brought the bloomers to try to convince this has become like the symbol of their struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but, they're like, maybe we can just like send them all to jail. And it's like, these are our wives. We can't put them in jail. That won't work.
Right.
So
What are we gonna do? We're gonna be treacherous about it. We're gonna do something underhanded.
yeah, that's the best way that we can get them back under our control.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Victor finds Grandpa's stash of cigars, but they smell kind of weird. They smell a little bit tangy, I guess you would say. With one being with the leaf being labeled as Acapulco Gold. Anthony, these are
Yep.
massive doobies, my man.
Yeah, I mean, these look like cigars, but yeah, these are,
These
this
are
is,
Cheech and
this
Chongs, is what I will call them.
is, yeah. Um, yeah, so we like they're messing with that while they're trying to plan, and then we have like back in town like the protest. I mean, it's like a revolution starting to happen. Like
Yeah. Riot.
they send in the police,
The most
and
incompetent police.
yeah, it's very Keystone Cops.
Mm-hmm.
The women, like, they end up stealing one cop's pants, and he has to try to like hide. He eventually ends up finding a pair of bloomers and puts those on because it's better than nothing.
Right.
But these are obviously like lacy women's bloomers, and it's embarrassing to him.
I mean, they just look
Um,
like pants, but whatever, man.
yeah. We also that again, as you mentioned, they all have like bottles of seltzer water, and spray a bunch of the cops. Um, and then at some point they're all climb. There's like a fountain, the Ermintrude
Right.
Square. There's a fountain in the middle, and the officials are like, maybe if we turn the fountain on and
Right.
spray the women, they'll go away.
Yeah,
But
because
no,
they're
they
already
just start.
covered in seltzer water, and that's going to affect them in any degree.
Yeah, so they're just dancing in the fountain. They're having a great time.
Right.
It's
The
definitely
guards are
not.
like, "We're going to stop you having a good time," and then they pull the head sheriff in, and basically, I don't want to say they're groping him, but I feel like they are.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely like trying to humiliate these
Yeah.
men, like kind of emasculate them, and um, I think then we have the police chief goes into the office of all the town officials, and is like, what idiot decided to turn the fountain on?
Right.
Which it was the burgomaster, um, and then he's like, and in the chaos, one of my men was debagged,
Right.
and
What?
everybody like they all like they're like what how what did they do? And I didn't know this term, but I looked it up, and I mean it is a real term. Debagged means to have your
Pantsed.
pants stolen.
Yeah.
But they, obviously there's a bunch of like innuendos about testicles throughout this bit.
Yeah.
And
And
the
one guy's
burgomaster
rubbing
feels,
his saber to make sure it won't rust. Is that's a thing, you know?
yeah, yeah.
It's
The
a euphemism.
burgomaster agrees to give the debagged officer an award.
The Black
Um,
Irving Award. What is this?
he's
You
like
come-
making it up on the spot because he's
Yeah.
like, what if it's like we could like put like there's like diamonds around the edge, and then no, we'll just do like some kind of cheap gemstone, like
Right.
um,
This will be the fourth class because he only sacrificed his pants.
yeah. Um, and he also has an idea though. If this rebellion seems to be sort of like led by Lady Frankenstein, who is bored because she didn't have money for the race, all they need to do is get her back in the race, and she'll be distracted and lose interest in this protest thing.
Right. And maybe she'll win, then she'll leave. We'll be done with her. We can go back to misogyny as is the normal state of the world, right?
Yeah. But they're like, how are we gonna get her in the race? She doesn't have the money. And he's like, well, we'll give her the money. And they're like, I don't think she'll accept money from us. And he's like, we'll
We gotta be
figure
smart
something
about
out.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, we can get money to her and she not know where it came from, basically.
Right. So then we cut to Victor with a bunch of smoke around his face. By the way, never figured Donald Pleasance for the stoner comedy kind of guy, but here we are. Yeah, he's really hungry. He's like, man, after smoking those cigars, I could use like some apples or plums or maybe a candy bar.
Yeah. And Tilly has returned at that point, and he's like, do you have a candy bar? And she's
Right.
like, no. But then all of a sudden, she goes into like a fugue state and almost is like possessed by the ghost of Baron Frankenstein.
It's because she catches the contact high.
Yeah, they like have. We'll see later. They really make it a lot more explicit. But yeah, basically she has gotten some secondhand smoke here, and is a little high, and somehow is tied to the Baron.
But
so
she
we
like
go
speaks in his voice.
Yeah, and it like kind of we go into a flashback, but it kind of bounces back and forth between flashback and her sort of narrating it. And like we have the Baron. He's trying to make a monster. First, he ends up making cheese instead.
Right. With his
He,
incompetent, perfectly Transylvanian idiot, Fritz.
Yeah. And the whole time, so like this is the young Baron. This is Victor's father, I think, right? And we have
I think it might be the grandfather, but it might be a father. Like those were
because
kind
there's
of
like a. Oh, okay, yeah, because he's so the like incompetent one is and then we have Donald Pleasance playing the grandfather.
without the wig, without his crappy wig.
Yeah, and so while she's kind of telling this story, Randy now is taking dictation, writing it down, and we don't get much from here. It just kind of sets the stage or whatever. We get this old Baron, we get his incompetent
But
sidekick and
but we
everything.
also get that he got his version. The old Baron found his version of Randy, who's kind of famous. Like I don't know that many people nowadays really know who this is, but it's Zsa Zsa
Oh,
Gabor.
yes. We actually weirdly had Zsa Zsa Gabor show up in an episode of Monsters Today that we
Right,
just recently watched on the Patreon. Like, who would have thought?
right.
Two
Why was she
two
such a big
cameos.
thing in the '80s? Like I know why the '60s because that's when she was like really started acting, but like in the '80s she was everywhere. She was in Monsters. She was in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Like she's here. I
Yeah,
think she
it
was on
seemed like.
Pee Wee, the Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Oh, she might have been. Yeah, I think it was like. That was like we had the TV land resurgence of
Yeah.
like Green Acres and Mr. Ed and those kind of like really old sitcoms that she was on Green Acres.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, yeah, it just seemed like she was just around then. She just kind of was like a cultural icon. She would just show up in cameos on shows or like in game shows. I feel like she was on Hollywood Squares a lot
Oh
and that
yeah.
kind of stuff. Um, yeah, it's strange. She I don't know that we have like a comparable person nowadays. She's kind of like she was famous for being who she was. Like she didn't really act.
Right.
She was just this sort of weird character with a thick accent that was just her in real life and also on Green Acres and whatever.
I think the
Um,
closest you would have is maybe the Kardashians, but even then, like she's far classier than they are.
yeah, like she did have like she was a comedian to a certain degree. Like
Hmm.
she was self-aware and did jokes and stuff. But yeah, she was just kind of like a celebrity for being a celebrity like the Kardashians. Yeah. Um, yeah, like that does feel like that or like, Paris Hilton like,
Right.
15 years ago or whatever. Um, but yeah, so we do meet her briefly and then we go back to like the present where Victor and Randy are pulling the monster out of the pit and Tilly is like, "You guys are wasting your time. This is not going to go anywhere." Um, but they get the monster on the slab, they start doing mad science, they've got like a decent lab, they're using the old Baron's lab.
Right.
um
But of course, it doesn't seem to be working just yet.
yeah, it's like Victor and Randy are kind of flirting the whole time, Tilly's kind of helping out even though she doesn't really seem
Hmm.
very invested in it. And it goes a while where like they're like, okay, it didn't work, the monster
Right.
didn't do anything.
The liquid's
um
leaking out. The lightning's not channeling right. Everything's not working the way it should. But even
yeah.
though this was kind of the way Tilly remembers things going.
And strangely, we get like, sometimes it'll be like we'll see the monster's hand move, and
Mhm.
then like it'll take a second or two before like everyone else notices it. Here, like we see the monster's hand move, and it's another couple minutes before they know that the monster is alive.
Right, because they're
Um,
like, oh, hey, well, you know how we got to figure this out. We've got to get her stoned again, and then she'll remember everything, right? So they push her into this little, like, curtained off area and literally start pumping smoke, marijuana smoke, into that area to get her high. And then, yeah, she starts talking like him again, like Grandpa.
yeah, and we see the monster sit up as that's going on. So, um, and
Yeah,
then
literally, she just talks about, like, yeah, she just finishes the rest of the story. That's about it.
yeah, and
But
then we
also, the
get
Monster Channel's BBC, and it hasn't even been invented yet.
right. And I think then we see like we with the doorbell rings or like the gate bell.
Hmm.
Um, and Tilly rushes out to the gate, and there's a woman there who says she's been sent by the Wayward Girls Home, and they were able to raise the money, and they want her to race
Right.
for feminism, basically. Like we're counting on you to show the world that women can do stuff.
Right. Until he's like, no, I could
And
never take that.
yeah, but they're like, but you got to show the town bullies who's boss, and she's like, all right, fine.
Right.
So, obviously this is the plan. The town elders have gotten her to take the money.
Yeah, the plan and the plant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
but okay, I'm sorry. This is when they push her into the the closet with a bunch of smoke, and she remembers about a guy named, was it Schmidt or was it Schutz? Like, because
Yeah,
Canadian, big Schutz.
yes.
Yeah, he was a village butcher who had a massive lump of meat, I guess is how they say it.
Yeah, he was really known for the quality and
Of his
size
meat.
of his meat. Yeah, like
He's well endowed. That's what it is.
yeah.
And all the women in town when he died mourned him. If that tells you anything.
Right. And so the reason that they are like that they have hotboxed Tilly this time is that like they're trying to figure out how to get the monster to talk.
Yeah.
And so but it turns out, you know, when Schutz died, that this is where the old Baron got the brain he used for his creation. And it was perfect because he was very docile, he was easy to control.
He just had one little problem.
Yeah, when he was around women, he became a bit of a rogue male, they said. So basically, like, you know,
he wanted to have a lot of sex. Is what happened.
Yeah, and you know, maybe Shoots the human. Maybe there were ladies that were interested, but now that he's a monster, you know, this is like basically sexual assault. Like,
this
they're
is
having
incorrect because I know a lot of women nowadays who would be like, "Sign me up, let's go."
Oh yeah. For sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
But
probably a couple
they also,
guys, but anyway,
they also kind of luck out because before he can really cause too much trouble, they discover that he is also susceptible to music. You know, this is a common Frankenstein trope.
Well, specifically, terribly played music.
Yeah, in this case, it is a flautist who's walking past playing music, and again. We get a ton of dick jokes here. Like he you know, was really blowing on that purple flute, you know, purple pipe or something. Like it's, they really go wild with the innuendos here.
Yeah.
And you know, I think, you know, he eventually. So like this is where the Baron says he fell in love with the Zsa Zsa Gabor character.
Yeah. And he stopped his philandering ways.
Yeah.
But he also installed a mirror above his bed, so, you know, give and take, right?
Right. And he ended up going around town to, like, ask people about Shoots to, like, figure out how he can better manipulate and control his monster. And he learns that Shoots was particularly fond of his family's governess, like a maid, housekeeper kind of lady.
Nanny Groat.
So he would have Tilly dress up in like an old maid costume while he played the flute.
Yeah.
And that did the trick.
Right. But we also get a random mention of Billy Groat. You know, Billy Goat, Nanny Goat. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yes, she's dressed as Nanny Groat, as we were saying.
Yeah, so in the past, yeah, the old Baron had Tilly dress up, but now in the present we see Victor dressing up in this maid costume, and you know he's trying to play the flute.
Yeah, and as he's doing this, Tilly is snacking away on a chocolate bar and's like, chocolate's starting to get good in Mugglefucker or whatever.
Yeah, because now of course she's high as well.
Yeah.
But the flute thing works. Victor is able to kind of get the monster to sort of like dance his way back and go into like a jail cell in the castle.
Right.
So they lock up the monster, and then it cuts to like later on. Victor is complaining to Tilly like, I've tried everything.
He won't
I cannot get the monster to reveal the secret.
Right. And once again, Tilly says, "There's no treasure, but you guys have fun. I'm gonna go do a race now. Bye."
Yeah. And so, like, they have this conversation outside. Tilly gets in the car, drives off. Victor goes inside, and he's like, Randy, where are you? He goes downstairs, and he finds the monster shirtless.
And her clothes right out in front of his well.
Mm-hmm. And she comes climbing up, and she's in, like, this little, like, lacy negligee thing.
Right. Victor, you have to see. He's shown me his pipe. Victor's like, oh.
Yeah. And she's like, we need to get his clothes. It turns out the secret is sewn onto a little note in his shirt.
That Aunt Tilly sent
Uh,
off to be laundered. So, oh no,
yeah,
we have a time limit, but we don't really because they immediately get it. It's
yeah. And it turns out the note was even waterproof in the first place, so it wouldn't have mattered either way.
right. But this
Uh,
this is just a kind of a random. It almost seems like a throwaway, but there is something important to it. Apparently, he hired Thomas Crapper to help install plumbing in the castle.
mm-hmm. Yeah, he wanted to bring the village, into the next century. Um, but once they got it all installed, and it looks like an outhouse. It's got like a moon shape cutout in the door and everything.
Mhm.
The Baron goes inside, and all of a sudden there's like this explosion, and he comes out, and he's covered in like black sludge.
Right.
Um, but it turns out, it
It's
looks
not
like it's
crap.
like gonna be, yeah, but it actually is. They struck oil, um, or they keep calling it rock oil,
Right.
um, but
Petroleum.
but the Baron doesn't want to tell anybody about the oil because it would destroy the beautiful countryside. They would tear down his castle. So he had the pipe capped and charged the monster with keeping the secret.
So he's an environmentalist. So this Victor is a good guy. Good guy Victor, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then we cut back to the present where we're in the middle of the race. We've got all the village women cheering Tilly on, and these cars can't go that fast. Again,
Yeah.
they're like, Model A, Model
Maybe
T
25,
style
30
cars.
miles an hour.
Yeah. So we see some cars trying to pass each other, but it's not particularly wild. Um, and then we go to the town butcher shop where Randy is buying a variety of foods and stuff.
But she's
But
also
she,
planning some information. She's
Mhm.
on a mission.
Yeah, she tells the butcher that they're rich now, and he's like, "Oh, really?" And he's like really kind of antsy and anxious, like he wants to know more.
By the way, the
Um,
sign outside of his shop is, "If you could beat my meat, tell me."
yeah,
Yep. Okay. But
yeah,
yeah, she keeps dropping, "Oh yeah, we're rich." And he's like, "Well, maybe, you need to hold off because this is a lot of stuff you're buying."
yeah, and he's like, "But what about the factory that's coming?" And she's like, "Oh, don't worry. When
The
the time
syndicate will take
comes,
care of that.
yeah, soon we'll have something much better than buggy whips."
The syndicate from New Jersey is going to help us.
From Hohokus, New Jersey, which comically is we have another Frankenstein reference there because that's where Jeffrey from Frankenhooker is from.
Yep.
Um, so,
Oh,
but yeah,
is there a connection here? I'll buy
yeah.
it.
And so then we cut to like another town meeting where the officials are like, "We got to do something about these Frankensteins.
They're
Like
gonna bring monsters.
yeah, we need to get rid of them. We've got public opinion behind us. We can get away with anything. Like we could tar and feather them if we wanted to."
Man, if only that wasn't the case. But they were like, "Well, the respected element of town, they're not going to stand for this. So we have to, we have to be very respectable about how we take care of the situation, right?"
Mm-hmm.
Cut to the respectable element gathering torches here in a minute.
Yeah, we have just a classic pitchfork and torch mob. They're headed towards the castle. Inside, Victor is playing the piano and singing, like just like kind of like beautiful, kind of chill music, not like
Yeah.
wacky stuff or anything.
I never thought
uh,
Donald Pleasance could sing that good. And that,
Yeah, yeah. And we end up. We
was
get a
pleasant.
knock at the door. Yeah. Randy answers the door, and it's the police chief. And or like she sees it's the police chief. She's like, "Wait here." She goes to tell Victor, and Victor's like, "Ah, yes, the town must be taking the bait. They, our plan is in motion." And he's like, "Okay, go keep it moving." So she goes back and starts talking to the police chief, and
but she's dressed in a very sexy outfit.
Yeah, she's definitely flirting here.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's groping her hands. He's like kissing all over them, and
She's like, "You're salivating on my gloves. Stop it."
yeah. But he promises that his men can keep her safe, but she should kind of get out ahead of all the controversy because she could end up being named as an accessory
The
in
possession of a
illegal.
monster.
Yeah. Um, So she's like, monster. Victor would never risk this great windfall we have in the castle by toying with a monster. There are no monsters here in the castle.
What do you
Um,
mean by that?
yeah, he's very curious, and
We're going
she
to come into a large amount of money.
yeah, and she even shows him this little bottle that contains oil, and she's like, "I Victor gave me this. I'm supposed to take it and give it to the visitors from the syndicate. They're from, again, they're from New Jersey, from the United States, and they're going to
Right.
bring all their American dollars, and we're going to sell them this oil." Um,
American dollars, you say? Yeah, very interesting.
yeah, yep.
So
So
one
then we
thing we did
see,
skip over a second ago, though, was that the this guard had actually hired a gentleman by the name of Big Black Bill, who
mm,
has an eye patch, and they both have eye patches and like hoods for some reason, and during their conversation they keep swapping them back and forth.
yeah, he meets him in this like kind of shady pub, and like I think they're supposed to be disguised, but
Right.
yeah, it's
They're
very
clearly
silly.
the sticking out the most, right? Now we
Yeah.
mentioned Big Bad Bill because he's sent out to basically murder Tilly while she's on the race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she's in the lead, but then we see like he causes like a rock slide, and like the car gets like buried under rocks. Um,
Yeah,
and then
he goes
the
to check
monster
him out.
comes out.
Well, he goes to check up on Bill goes to check up and make sure
Hmm.
she's dead, right?
Yeah. And yeah, the monster bursts out of the forest and grabs him and like drags him away.
Yeah, as you said,
Um,
shirtless, which is a great. It's a great sight just
mhm.
because it's funny to see the monster in like suspenders and like pants, but nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then we see the police chief talking to the burgomaster about Victor's plan to sell to these, rich Americans or whatever. And the burgomaster's like, no, but we need that. And like, if there's this great oil under there, we really need it.
Right.
Maybe we can, outbid the Americans or just buy them out before they get here.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So then we
Yeah.
cut to after that discussion. Victor apparently has a lot of food on his shirt, but it's also his grandpa's shirt. So
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah. And Randy's warning him like, be careful. These town officials, they're wily, they're corrupt. Like,
Yeah.
we
The
don't
banker
want
is
to.
the sneakiest one out of all of them.
Yeah, we don't want to start thinking that we, have them on the back foot, like that we're so many steps ahead, and then they end up, outsmarting us in the last minute or something.
Fair enough.
And then so Victor goes downstairs, and then the monster arrives.
It almost looks like
Approaching.
he's going to back Randy into a corner.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, "You're still missing your shirt. Let me get you a shirt. I can help you out." So she gives him a shirt, um, and then we have the town leaders come and like talk to Victor,
Yeah.
and they're like, we want to buy the castle from you before instead of selling it to the syndicate. And he's like, all right, I'm interested, but you're gonna have to pay off all the back taxes, all the mortgage, um, and also throw in a couple extra million, put it in my Swiss bank
Big
account.
account, right. Basically pay me off or pay off all my debts and pay me off as well, right?
Mm-hmm. And the leaders are like begging Randy, like, please reason with him, like, this is too much. And she's like, why would I reason with him? I also would like to be rich.
Right.
I
She's
want
like, "Oh,
you to
honey,
give
you
us-"
don't understand. I want to die a rich old dowager. Thank you."
Mm.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, there you go.
Yeah. So then
it
we
looks like
see
Victor's
like,
going to win.
yeah, and then I don't know if it's like just later on or like the next day, but the leaders are all still at the castle, and Victor's just kind of like, he knows he's got the power, so he's just kind of being a dick to them.
Yeah, he's literally having them do his menial tasks. He sends the Schmidt guy, the butcher, to take his jacket, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We get a note arrives that says Tilly died in a car accident in the race. She was boiled alive when the steam from her engine
Oh no!
erupted onto her or
Right.
whatever.
Well, it's a gag because each person in the room reads off like one sentence.
Yeah. And they're like, well, what happens to the castle now? Because she was the rightful owner or whatever. Like,
Well, it goes straight to
actually,
Victor.
yep, straight to Victor. So now he is the one person they have to work with to buy this castle.
Right. But it's going to take them a while to get the cash, and it may hit midnight before they get it. But Victor's like, well, you better hurry up or the Americans will have it.
Mm-hmm. But before that happens, they get another note that because of the car accident and the steam car causing all these problems, or no, not because of the accident, there was another car
A
that was a
gentleman by the
steam
name
car.
of Rockefeller won that one in his steam
Yeah,
car.
his steam car won the race, and so now oil is out of fashion.
Right.
We're not going to be doing gas and oil anymore.
Steam
It's all
powered
steam.
cars from here on now, baby.
Yeah,
The better
so,
timeline.
Yeah, so they don't need the gas under the castle anymore. And Victor's like, well, but you wanted to turn this into a buggy whips factory. Maybe you could still do that.
Right.
And this is where they're like, cars don't need buggy whips. We're done with that. That's old news.
Right. Sorry, bud. We're gonna be taking possession of this house tonight.
Yeah. And somebody's like, I want to see this letter of intent from the syndicate.
Mm-hmm.
And they like snatch this piece of paper from him, and it's like a grocery list.
Yeah. Or a laundry
So,
list.
Oh yes, yeah. So they realize like this has all been bullshit.
Yeah, you're a bankrupt charlatan.
Yeah, we're gonna evict you and incarcerate you.
What? This is when Tilly arrives. She's fine. She's alive.
Yeah. And they're like, wait, we thought you were dead. And she's like, I don't read everything you see in the papers.
Yeah. Well, fair enough.
And then we also get right behind her, a mob appears, but this is the ERA women. They're cheering for her. They're all excited. And the officials are like, this is kind of like we have all the characters sort of arriving together in the castle here at the end.
Yeah, even the sheriff shows up, and she specifically tells him, listen, you lay off or I'll have your hat, your buttons, and your cockade, which,
So they're like, no, we've got to evict you. If you don't have the money, like, this is municipal property. We can evict you all. We can make the other ladies, leave, the protesters.
Well, she's like, turns out I do have enough money because didn't she win effectively? Like,
yeah, I think she was the winner. She somehow like got into the other car or something.
Yeah.
So she's gonna pay the taxes, and they're like, well, here's the thing: you have to pay the taxes to a quorum of the city council, and there's not enough of us here.
Right, they have to be franchise citizens, right?
Yeah, we need at least 20 enfranchised citizens, and the ERA protesters are like,
well, we're citizens.
Yeah, we're citizens, and they're like, yeah, but you can't vote. You're not enfranchised. It doesn't count.
Right.
And then we hear the clock striking midnight, and the burgomaster's like, oh, too late. Nothing, we've got the castle now, and we can get rid of all of you. This bunch of angry women, all like none of it matters.
Well, it turns out that his assistant is like, well, I think they actually are franchised, and like there's way more than half, so we're definitely hitting quorum territory here.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks pretty clear that like the victory has, like the townsfolk are victorious. The women are getting to vote. The Frankensteins get to keep their castle. Like everything's just coming up great for everybody.
Right. The burgomaster gets chased out, and like Schmidt turns on him and like starts spraying him with seltzer water.
Mm-hmm.
When did that happen? Like when did he switch sides?
Yeah, I don't. And then Tilly is like, well, now that we have this big castle and nothing to do with it, I want to open it up as a home for wayward girls.
What? Wayward girls? You can't do anything with those. And
yeah, there's no money in wayward girls.
Victor's in like, yeah, and then everyone's like, shut up. don't think that.
Yeah. And then they spray him with seltzer.
Yeah.
And then we get epilogue, vengeance, compassion, and other odds and ends.
Just random. We didn't even have chapters. We just had the start. Was there a prologue? We have an epilogue.
No, yeah, yeah. We just had the movie start, and then we had an epilogue.
Sure.
Um, so in the epilogue, we have the monster bursting into this old lady's cottage, and she feeds him dinner.
Right.
Uh,
She's not even bothered by it. She's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?"
yeah, and we do get like the angry mob storming through the forest. They burst into the cottage, and they're like, "What are you doing? Like, this is a monster." And she's like, "Yeah, but he likes my cooking."
Yeah. It's
Um,
not that bad of a
so
monster.
yeah, so the monster kind of scares away the mob. Um, Meanwhile, Randy and Tilly are talking about like they need to find the monster. It's gone missing.
Right.
Um,
And
and
they have to
Randy's
report
like,
it or they'll be fined because apparently monsters that are unemployed are illegal, but if they're gainfully employed, it's legal. This seems there's some sketchiness around this one. Like this is like a political statement, but I'm not sure what it's stating.
yeah, it's very unclear what exactly
Yeah.
especially with this movie being so just like wacky
Yeah.
the rest of the time. Um, so we have she's got specifically the plan is that they're going to use the monster to sell the oil.
Right.
And so Randy goes down to the police station to report that the monster is missing. And we have a police officer who's like, "Oh, that's just another UFO, an unidentified Frankenstein observation."
Yeah. Wop wop wop.
But she actually hears there's another cop who's on the phone with someone reporting that the monster is in the abandoned south wing of Castle Frankenstein. So
Very specific.
they rush back home. Okay, the monster is just actually in our house.
Mm-hmm.
And they find him hidden in that lavatory made by Thomas Crapper. And they end up like bringing him back to the main castle. And we see later on Victor and Randy are running like basically like a snake oil cart.
Yeah.
They're selling, you know, curatives made of the oil they're harvesting from under the castle.
Right, which will apparently cure corn smut, tennis elbow, and bandied legs. Which, yeah, it's just like you said, snake oil salesman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like honestly, this should have ended 5 minutes ago. Once they were like, "Hey, we're gonna turn this into a home for wayward girls," you know. But no, this thing keeps trudging along.
Yeah, this whole epilogue is not really very necessary.
Yeah,
We
like basically, as part of the cure or whatever, powering up, the monster takes some of the cure all, and he's able to lift this big weight, and then the lady who's the narc basically comes in and is like, "No, this is balsa wood. It's BS," and they yell at him and scream at him. But apparently, Victor tries to pivot into a little bit of political statements about how Transylvania used to be better back in the day, and I don't even remember where it goes from there. But he like yells at the monster and says, "I'm going to disown you," and the monster gets sad. Like
he starts crying. And then we have the police chief. He still feels kind of like,
well, he's been knocked down to pie salesman now. He's pushing around a cart with pies.
And he wants to throw a pie at Victor, but when he finally does it, it ends up hitting another one of the officials instead.
Yeah.
And then we have like a little later, Victor is apologizing to the monster, and he's like, "Sorry, I didn't realize that you had feelings in there."
Right.
And then we get this very last scene that is the most pointless scene of the whole movie. They get a call from the store that is like confirming an order for groceries that they've placed.
Mm-hmm.
But like we have Randy's on the phone, and she's talking about like that they ordered hockey pucks.
Right.
And she's like, you can't play hockey without a puck. And then Victor's like, you also can't play Midsummer Night's Dream without a puck.
There you go.
And then we just see he continues to argue with the grocery people on the phone. And we see the monster sitting over to the side, smiling really big. And everyone's like, oh, look, he's smiling.
This is actually the most terrifying part of this movie. Because it takes a full minute for him to actually break out into a smile with teeth. Like the face
Yeah.
just slowly like curls up into or the lips actually curl up into a smile, and then finally he leans back like ha ha ha. But that was the most terrifying part of this movie.
Yeah, and it's a real creepy smile for
Yeah,
sure.
like unintentionally so. But
And that
that's it.
yep, that takes us to credits. It's a pretty abrupt ending even with having an epilogue. Um
It's yeah, for an ending that stretches on far more than it ever needed to. It's also very abrupt. But that is this movie. This movie is a mess. I don't know if you understood. Like, would you say this is one of the hardest movies we've ever had to like go through?
Yeah, like because it doesn't really have a plot and it's a lot of gags, and not only is it a lot of gags, but like this movie's hard, it's super out of print. I found a VHS copy that I tried to watch, and it was so bad that I couldn't like understand any of the dialogue.
Yeah.
And in fact, like I really know like the beginning where it had the sign that said the seltzer water capital of the world. I could not read that sign like on my TV. I could not read what it said. And I was like, this is going to be impossible. But then I ended up finding it on YouTube, and it
Right.
was a slightly better rip, but it's still from a
Really
VHS.
hard. Yeah. It's still really hard
So
to
like,
listen to or watch.
yeah, when it's like really punchy, quick dialogue. I mean, like if you've seen Airplane or something like that, where it's just like gag a minute, that's hard when it's like, dry British humor and poor audio mixing and
Yeah.
just degradation over time of
It
like the
just doesn't
quality.
mix, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it was definitely hard to like really like get into this. I think, and it's definitely like if you watch Airplane or Naked Gun or something now, those movies they don't quite hold up now because it's a lot of like sexist jokes and stuff, but like
Mhm.
the humor still mostly is like relevant to a degree that like you get it. But a lot of this humor, I guess because it's older and it's also British, so it's like two steps removed from us here.
Right.
There was a lot of it where I was like, I feel like this is supposed to be funny, but this part really isn't doing anything for me.
Right.
Um,
You could tell there was a joke here, but you also missed it, right? It's like
hmm
I'm not sure.
Yeah, like yeah. I mean, it's fun. Like it's worth checking out. Like
Yeah.
it's not terrible, but it's not one that I'm likely to revisit. Like I feel like I watched it, okay, great, and I don't really need to see it again.
Yeah. I have never sit back and just be like, wait, what happened? Like 5 different times in several different scenes. I'm like, there something happened here, but I'm not sure what. What's going on?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not
I had to
bad. Yeah.
rewind several times over to kind of like get my mind around what was happening. Um, and I mean, it's not just the age and all that. Like we said, the plot is very loose and kind of like jumps around, and so sometimes it's like, wait, who is this character supposed to be, and
Right.
what timeline are we on, and stuff like it's just
It's a stream of
it.
consciousness kind of movie. I think we've said that a couple
Yeah.
times, but this is more like, hey, I got baked and at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I'm trying to think up a funny movie.
Yeah. Um, and because of that, there's not a lot of like deeper themes here. Like you said, there's this bit here where like there's something about illegal alien ship kind of, but like there's not
Yeah.
really enough there to even sink your teeth into, and that's a little split-second gag again. It's not like something the movie's really like spending time with.
I would like to know,
Um,
like, how many writers, like, let's go back and look at how many writers are in this thing.
yeah, it does seem like a comedy troupe kind of writing situation for sure.
Well, it also seems like there's a lot of like too many cooks kind of going on. Not the funny Adult Swim too many cooks. Just like there's just like one Myron Gold who's the director. Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. It's
So
just
I
yeah.
guess, yeah, he must have just had a very specific vision of what he wanted and wasn't really willing to.
Did he though? Because it
Uh,
feels like the opposite. Like he didn't know where he wanted to focus. Oh well.
yeah, it just seems like maybe if he had some editors to kind of like push him to focus a little better, it might have been a little easier to follow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I'd have to agree with that.
but yeah, but it's just like a fun mess. Like a lot of times we talk about movies. They're like, oh, it'd be a good one to like hang out and watch with friends or whatever.
Mhm.
because this is so hard to understand and it's so quick, I won't know that I would want to watch this with anybody else because you really kind of have to dial in or you're gonna miss a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Like if you
if
just wanted
anybody's
background noise, this would be fine. But if you try to focus on it, good luck. You better be locked
Yeah.
in tight.
Absolutely.
All right.
But yeah, I think that's all I got to say about this one. It's kind of slight, but it was enjoyable.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. Like seeing Donald Pleasance be anything other than Dr. Loomis is always a pleasure. Like that guy's always bringing his A game. The lady who's playing Tilly, she was great. Randy was fun. Like all the characters are fun. And honestly, if this was a TV show, I guarantee it would have been 10 times better. So
Yeah, the world would have gotten a little bit more of established. There could have been some more fun there for sure.
Well, fair enough. All right. Well, anything else we have to say about it?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, I'm really good at being a co-host, and I'm really good at focusing on anything other than looking at the schedule. So I'm gonna pause this and or cut this out, and we'll talk about the schedule here. Hold on one second. Yeah, I was so focused on getting everything else up and running. Oh boy. So Anthony, I mean, it's almost Christmas time.
It is.
Yep. And you know what comes with Christmas, right? It's toys. Well, so how about we go to a series about Christmas and toys, but it's more about Christmas and Santa Claus and a bunch of other random stuff. Anyway, it's Silent Night, Deadly Night 5 with the one with the puppet.
Yeah. So if you're not super familiar with the Silent Night, Deadly Night series, the first couple were a single story, but eventually by the end of it, it just was telling its own separate things. And so if you're wondering like why would we skip to 5?
Yeah.
5's its own thing. And it is a Frankenstein story,
100%.
unlike the other ones before it.
Well, the first one is a killer Santa Claus. The second one is literally the flashback trailer of the first one with a couple extra scenes and Garbage Day for those chronically online people. And yeah, nothing else is related.
Right. Yeah. So by the time we get to the 5th one, yeah, I think it's subtitled the Toy Maker, maybe.
I believe it to be.
But yeah, it's got a little Frankenstein bend to it, and yeah, of course, it's Christmas, and it's always fun to do some spooky Christmas movies. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. So join us for that next week.
All right, where can they find us, Anthony?
Yeah, so you can find us on all the socials at the Frankencast, including TikTok. You can also find us on YouTube, where as we mentioned earlier, we're going to try to start posting the video of us, of the episodes.
Maybe hit the like and subscribe buttons now.
Yeah. So definitely check it out over there if you want to see us. And I'm guessing that it may be like the uncut version. I usually kind of edit it down a little bit on the the podcast feed, but with the video, I think we'll probably just put it straight forward, so you'll get a little bit more loosey goosey. Which if that's something you're into, check us out over there.
Let us know if you like the feed.
Yeah. We just trying some new things. So let us know if that's something that we should keep doing. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com and let us know about that. And you can also always find us over at patreon.com/thefrankencast, where we kind of let our hair down a little bit more and go into some lesser known things and things that are kind of curiosities that wouldn't really warrant a full main feed episode.
There is a lot of wacky stuff over there for sure.
Yeah, we just discussed a novelty record recorded by Conan O'Brien. So yeah, you just never know what we're going to get up to over there.
Yep. We have some religious debates or discussions that weren't meant to be.
Yeah, there's hours and hours of stuff over there, so you're sure to find something to enjoy over there.
No doubt. Well, anything else we have to say about it?
I think that's it.
Well, thank you again, and
To be continued.